Yeah, Wes, now we have that story on record for a potential
crap.
cold open.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no. Now everyone knows I
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, a DJ, record collector, and podcaster residing in Philadelphia because of the incident in Kalamazoo.
The incident.
I won't talk about it, don't ask.
Does this involve the Incredible Bongo Band?
It was an incident, that's all I'm going to say.
That's only funny because you told me what that was a reference to
Oh,
shortly before this.
That makes for great podcasting when one of the co-hosts is in on it.
Our audience
I know.
loves inside jokes
I
that they're
got
not
it.
a part of.
I'm co-host Jeremy, and I thought I'd take advantage of, you guys know how Reddit is firing moderators who are causing them problems because they're not going along. I took advantage of that so I could become the new moderator
Ooh,
r/Leon the Snowman.
Oh,
that's a big get. That's a prestigious internet role.
Yeah.
Big shoes to fill.
yeah. What's it feel like to be in power?
I'm ruthless. I'll say that much.
I believe it. After podcasting with you for 4 seasons, I believe it.
Yeah.
I am co-host Peter Cook, and I'm excited to announce that I've started a new record label to release a lost Leon Redbone album that was recently unearthed.
Whoa.
It was recorded in 2005,
Okay.
and Leon performs vaudevillian spins of songs by nu metal giants Limp Bizkit. The name of the collection is Rearranged,
Oh,
out on Rolling on the Track Records this fall.
yeah.
And,
Amazing.
and joining us for, I believe, the 4th time on I'd Buy That for $1 is a guest who knows firsthand the power and pizzazz of alliteration. Welcome back to I'd Buy That for $1, Wes Wheat.
I get it. It's my name.
See, that's
It's
one
alliteration.
that's one that everyone can get, Sean.
It's not an inside joke. Well, you watched the documentary. You should get that reference.
I am not retaining much of anything nowadays.
And whoa, before we go any further, we should mention that Sean, Peter, and I, and Wes is also here. We're in a room together for the first time since February of 2020.
Yeah, since the incident. The other incident. The worldwide incident.
Yeah. The last time that we podcasted in a room together was February 29th, 2020, when we recorded the Cyndi Lauper episode with Shannon Gross in Chicago.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's a lifetime ago.
Yeah. Not only are we all in the same room together, but all 4 of us are sleep deprived and loopy and ready for our much deserved break coming up at the end of this season. So I'm hoping that all of us can at least bring about 25% of the energy needed so that we can create one decent podcast off of this. We'll see what happens.
I think we can do it.
All right.
I have faith.
These are the poorest notes I've ever written. I don't have details for a lot of things, so I just know that someone's going to ask me a question I'm not going to have an answer for. So let's do it.
So who are we here to talk about, Sean?
We are here to talk about one of my, I don't know, maybe not one of my favorite musicians, but I've just always been kind of fascinated and a little bit obsessed with this guy, Leon Redone. Definitely one of the artists that when we first started this podcast, this was someone I was thinking about that we needed to cover. So it's overdue. I'm excited to maybe get people excited about this guy, hopefully. And we were talking about his debut album from 1975, On the Track.
Yeah, you pretty much get everything you are going to get with Leon Redbone on this debut, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, his style remained basically unchanged throughout his entire career. So many artists, especially people who did kind of rootsy music, their later stuff gets a little polished and weird and loses the magic. And You can listen to any one of his, I believe, 13 LPs, and they're basically all the same, just slight variations in recording technology, but he never made any significant changes. It's kind of fascinating.
Very singular artist.
Yes. Yes.
And what track would you like to play from On the Track?
I would love to play side A, track 1, Sweet Mama, Hurry Home, or I'll Be Gone.
I've been so blue and lonesome too ever since you went away. My poor heart yearns for you both night and day. Since you're gone, the stars don't seem to shine. You were always on my mind. I'm so unhappy, I want just you. Ah, but there'll come a time you'll miss me and you'll be blue. There'll come a time you'll want me, no one else will do. Sweet mama, your heart belongs. While my loving, then you see that you were wrong. I know you'll sigh, maybe sometimes cry, but then I'll be long gone. Sweet mama, hurry home or I'll be gone. Hurry home or I'll be gone. You won my heart right from the start. I gave all my love to you. I never dreamed that you could be untrue. You had ways of loving all your own. That's what made me leave my happy home. Now that you're gone, I'm left all alone. Oh, but there'll come a time you'll miss me and you'll be blue. There'll come a time you want me, no one.
This is a very clean copy of this album. I almost wish that we had a more beat up copy to make it sound authentic with that surface noise and that crackle.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the quotes that I'd heard is from the early days of Leon Redbone, is people said that when you saw him live, you could easily imagine the 78 crackle of these ancient songs that he's covering. And that makes sense. Like, his music transports you. It's a whole vibe.
Yeah. That's a great opening track, the introduction to Leon Redbone.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to start somewhere. That's the place.
Do you guys remember the first time you heard Leon Redbone? Like, maybe what your first impressions were?
I think it was right around the time I had been checking out stuff like Hoagie Carmichael. So I just had to question, wait, when is this guy from? I thought this guy was from the 70s. This sounds like it's from the 40s. And sure enough, it's just him doing throwback.
Well, we'll get into it, but he is from the 70s and yet also from the 1920s.
Yeah, yeah.
To hear him tell it.
It depends on when I saw Elf, if that's the first time I heard Leon Redone. Because I didn't see that movie when it came out because my parents hate Will Ferrell. Or my dad hates Will Ferrell. My mom likes him fine.
Fair.
Yeah, and Leon...
He's Leon the Snowman. He brought it up in his intro.
Mm-hmm.
But it was either that or when I was a freshman in college, hanging out in my dorm because I didn't have any friends. I was trying to watch Saturday Night Live in order because they put all of it on Netflix when Netflix was still kind of new. And I was like, yeah, I'll just watch the first season of Saturday Night Live. And he he guest musician like a handful of times.
Yeah, like 2 or possibly 3 times.
Yeah, and it was like, this guy weird for like an SNL guy. You know, it was like SNL in the first season, like their guest hosts and or like the early seasons, their guest hosts and their guest musicians were really weird choices for them. They had Zappa in the first season as well. It's like,
Yeah, Beefheart was on there a few seasons in.
And
they kept having Buck Henry host. It's like,
wasn't George Carlin the first
George Carlin was
host?
the very first host.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And they didn't even have a musical guest in the first episode.
Right, he just did like a stand-up routine instead. Yeah.
I don't even know where I first heard Leon Redbone, but I do remember my first thoughts of it being oh, this is like what Tom Waits is trying to do, but this is more real.
That's the theme lately, is referencing Tom Waits in episodes.
Yeah, out of nowhere, he's the new Tupac.
Yeah, the Tupac of the end of the season. Peter, I like that you got into it by being into the music that he's referencing in this time period, because for me, it wasn't that at all. Like, I'd never really had a Tin Pan Alley phase. I mean, there's been different musicians that are influenced by that I appreciate, but it's not like I was like, oh, Hoagie Carmichael, that's my shit, let's go. You know, like,
Yeah.
It's just I don't remember like what year I first listened to this. I just, you know, throughout my career of working in record stores, I like to put on albums I've never heard that have interesting covers. And this one with the cartoon album cover, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What does this sound like? I was prepared to hate this when I put it on.
Yeah, that's Michigan J. Frog on
Yeah,
the cover.
exactly.
Illustrated by Chuck Jones.
And I believe the intention of having Michigan J. Frog on there is that, you know, that was maybe people's best reference of the kind of music that Leon Redbone was doing, because there was the cartoon short with the frog on there, and the whole bit was that it was this frog that could sing these Tin Pan Alley songs, and the guy thought he was going to get rich, but every time he put the frog on stage, he wouldn't sing. And the way that the frog sang in the cartoon is kind of Leon Redbone style, so that was the choice. I don't know if Leon had any creative input on the artwork, or if the label was just desperate to like find an angle of how to sell this weird record in 1975.
I was trying to find an explanation for the album cover, and was like, I can't find it.
Yeah.
And like your answer is as good as one. Like everything I found was like, yep, Michigan J. Frog is on the cover. I'm like, thanks. Can you tell me why?
Did any of you see on the back how it says that Leon Redbone is not to be mistaken with or has no association with the epic recording artist Redbone?
Oh,
I
no,
did not see
interesting.
that.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was for some kind of legal reasons, or if I don't know why Leon would have a beef with them.
Well, maybe they didn't want someone to pick up a Leon Redbone album and think it was going to sound like
Redbone.
When is he going to do Come and Get Your Love?
Yeah.
There's no like psychedelic rock on here.
Yeah. Stylistic departure for Redbone, geez. He was an artist that has been mistaken for other people throughout his entire career. There was popular conspiracy theories that he was maybe Bob Dylan in disguise, or possibly Frank Zappa playing a prank. People thought this was like an Andy Kaufman bit, maybe. People just didn't really know what to make of Leon Redbone. It was like, there has to be something going on here, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he stuck to it so much without ever deviating from the character that I could see why people would think they were being put on by some known figure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it did come out of nowhere, essentially. It's like, I mean, you're going to talk about the Mariposa Folk Festival later, but it's like, yeah, he's this guy no one really knew. He ends up on SNL twice in the first season. Which, I mean, the show was nothing at that point, but it's still, you know, network television. His album was big. He got a write-up in Rolling Stone before he ever even released a record.
Yeah, I don't even think he was signed at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one of those artists that he just arrived, and the right people were like, Leon Redbone is the shit. That just everyone was like, okay, I guess so. Like, seems kind of weird to me, but if Bob Dylan likes it,
he would get accused of being an industry plant today. They'd be like, why are they pushing this like weird throwback musician on me? Like,
yeah, when you said that there's conspiracy theories about it being an alter ego, it reminded me of Andrew WK and all the conspiracy theories that he can't be for real.
Or the band Klaatu.
Yeah, who people thought were the Beatles in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
I was just listening to your Bee Gees one. Apparently, people thought they were I'd never heard that until listening to your show, that people thought they were the Beatles. They were kind of pushing it that way.
Yeah, and some of their stuff was very much...
Oh, I knew they had Beatles influence, but but that they actually tried marketing them by, what did you say?
Yeah, well, people thought...
They would just say a British band starts with B.
Yeah, we'll just roll with it because it'll sell records.
Yeah,
exactly. People think this is the Beatles.
Yeah, the world was a different place before the internet, huh?
Exactly.
Well, I guess we should really talk a little bit about just the persona of Leon Redbone for people that are uninitiated and don't know what his deal was. He basically created the Leon Redbone character and then so fully embodied him for the rest of his life that he didn't talk about personal details or who he really was, and just really presented basically as kind of a time traveler. He would claim that he was the original author of a lot of these Tin Pan Alley songs and that he was over 100 years old and had been around and was a contemporary of Hoagie Carmichael, and he always wore like his trademark Panama hat, dark sunglasses, and had a mustache, and like wore kind of old timey suits. And when he performed on stage, it was always with like a side table and a lamp and a glass of whiskey next to him, and was a very witty, almost like Mark Twain-esque kind of character. Would have like these wry, clever jokes and one-liners between songs, which made him a favorite of late night talk shows. Yeah, and he just almost exclusively performed songs that were about like 50 to 100 years old.
Yeah, did he write any originals, or was it, in actuality, or were they all covers of older material?
He did write originals. I believe one track on this album is an original, the like Haunted House blues song at the end of side B.
That is a traditional.
Is it traditional? Okay. Well,
I mean, according to allmusic.com, I can't. I don't vet their sources, so.
All right, Peter is doing an IRL for the record right now,
which could even be, if he did write it, he could have credited it as traditional just because that's part of his persona.
Yeah.
Just looking on the back, it doesn't have on the back of the record. I'm not going to yank this off the turntable that we're listening to, but it just says all arrangements by Leon Redbone.
Yeah, I mean, so primarily he did covers throughout his whole career. Every once in a while he would write an original, and when he did, it was very much in the style of these other songs, so it could be easily confused as a traditional or cover.
Yeah, if he's to be believed, he basically is responsible for all of this.
Yeah,
music.
they are covers, and yet also he is the original author of all of them.
He's setting the record straight constantly.
Yeah.
Well, did we want to get into another song?
Let's do that. Next up, we're going to hear a cover of Ain't Misbehavin', I'm Saving My Love for You, made popular by
Fats Waller.
Correct.
Well, written by Fats Waller. He didn't just make it
Written
popular.
and
He
made
wrote
popular.
the song.
Yeah.
Let's give him his credit.
I wanna talk with all by myself. I want to walk with, but I'm happy on the shelf. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you. I know for certain the one I love, I'm through with flirting, just you I'm dreaming of. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you. Like Jack Horner in the corner, don't go nowhere, why do I care? Your kisses I was waiting for, believe me. I don't stay out late, don't care to go. I'm home, my body, just me and my radio. behaving, saving my love for you.
A big part of the appeal of Leon Redbone for me is it's just so oddly comforting. He's got that deep voice and the kind of whimsical style going on, and it just puts me at ease when I listen to it. Like, I mean, I talked about, like, wasn't necessarily getting into this because I was a fan of the original songs, but just there's something about his style that is so captivating to me. And that's the thing I've been thinking about the most with, like, what is the secret to his appeal? Like, why does it click so much for me? And I think the key to Leon Redbone in a big way is this kind of whimsical style that he has. There's an element of humor to this music that I feel like could be a big turnoff for a lot of people. But at the same time, it's not a joke. He's not making fun of these songs. And he even was able to present his own character in a way that no one was ever even laughing at him. People recognized that it was a character and an act, but there was a certain amount of respect that went with it. And he was funny enough on his own that he just wasn't treated the same way as a regular novelty act ever would have been.
Well, he was also extremely talented.
Yes, that is another big key. It wasn't him half-assing these songs. It's not like he was a comedian that created a musician role. He's playing guitar on all these tracks. He's a brilliant guitar player. He's also completely self-taught, so there's a very unique style and interpretation going on to the way that he played these songs. So he's playing originals, but he's playing them the Leon Redbone way, which is kind of the way a lot of these original musicians would have done it anyways, like learning by ear and like reinterpreting traditionals and things like that.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if part of his appeal is that he's doing how people imagine that music sounding.
Yeah.
From our time, but like imagining back to what it sounds like, and he's like kind of the voice of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not even that he's protecting and preserving these songs. You know, there was plenty of roots music revivalists of that day, and it's just a fundamentally different approach. You know, he's not being like, oh, I'm playing these songs and being really serious and trying to like fully accurately recreate them in the way they were done originally. He literally claimed to be from that time period. And there's just like an interesting level of authenticity that comes with this approach that just couldn't really be replicated by any other revivalist musicians of that time period, which is why he had some very notable and famous fans that were kind of the reason why we even know about Leon Redbone today as it is.
Yeah, we alluded to Bob Dylan's fandom a little bit, but that was one of the keys in him getting recognized.
It was really the entire turning point. So early in Leon Redbone's career, he played the Mariposa Folk Festival in the early 70s, and Bob Dylan had caught wind of this up-and-coming Canadian musician who could just do these incredible, authentic reproductions of these songs. Bob was playing the same festival, and when he got there, just immediately was like, where's Leon Redbone? Like, I have to meet this guy. And then just followed him around the festival all day. And you can find a photograph online from this, and it's Leon Redbone in his full getup with Bob Dylan just following him a couple paces behind, seemingly fascinated, and then just a sea of like hippie youth just like confusedly being like, I don't know what we're doing, but this is the Leon Redbone circus. And Leon just looks so delighted to be the like goofball ringleader of this wild scene.
My wife, Ellen, and I were talking about that when we were just doing a little research on Leon Redbone in preparation for this episode. And she was just baffled. Like, she couldn't imagine what a conversation between Leon Redbone and Bob Dylan would be like. Yeah. Two guys who won't give up anything.
I'm sure the conversation was whimsical.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I want to bring up is I think part of his appeal is, like Jeremy kind of said, like he's playing it the way we think it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of, he's playing it he's not being strictly interpreting it the way it was written. He's doing his own thing, doing Jimmy Rogers songs. He's not doing it the way Jimmy Rogers would have done it.
Right.
And there's a lot of influences coming from different places. There's like some Django Reinhardt influences, as far as I can tell. There's New Orleans jazz. There's all kinds of stuff. And he's kind of mixing them all together. Like all this music from that time period, but it's not each individual bit. He's kind of mixing and matching in order to do something new. He's not just recreating something that's already been done. Because what's the point of that?
Exactly. And there's quotes from various people that knew him best in whatever that meant, you know, people that worked with him that said that he had the most eclectic music taste of anyone they'd ever met. You know, music from all over the world and all different traditions and time periods. And
yeah, as established by my forthcoming release on my new label, even into new metal.
He liked it all. A true musical omnivore.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall with Bob Dylan and Leon Redbone talking about significant other or $3 bill, y'all.
Two men who understand the actual genius of Fred Durst.
Yeah.
So another notable figure that got into Leon Redbone at that same folk festival was one John Prine.
Yeah.
Who was booked on the same festival, and just flipping through the booklet of the lineup, and you know, each artist had the little blurb of what they were about, what style of music they played, why you should listen to them. And the only thing under Leon Redbone was Leon Redbone is a musician residing in Toronto because of the incident in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I think it said he was born in 1910.
Yeah. Well, John sees that and it's like, well, this is different than anybody else playing this festival. I need to know who this like bizarre character is, and was a fan for the rest of his life. Jeremy, you saw earlier that they played a show in Kalamazoo together in the early 2000s.
They did in like 2004, I want to say it was.
John Prine and Leon Redbone.
Yeah.
They were probably talking about Limp Bizkit.
They could have been.
Yeah, the
John
infamous...
Prine's on that album, right, Peter? Playing backup?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, sorry, it took you a second to remember your own joke.
Well, I mean, John Prine and Leon Redbone. John Prine and Leon Redbone were the headliners, and Limp Bizkit opened that concert in Kalamazoo in 2004, as everyone knows.
Yeah.
What have I done?
I don't know if all of our fans love this new thing where we just start like saying bold lies and presenting them as truth. I know some people are probably getting really frustrated with this trend.
Let us know at i'dbuythatpodcast@gmail.com.
As I said, people that were closest to him still didn't know a whole lot about him. There's people that said that they could tell you things about his like dietary preferences and musical influences, but couldn't tell you Leon's dad's name or like where he's even from. And there was another story of a guy who went and played pool with Leon Redbone because apparently he was actually like really good at billiards, and that was one of his big hobbies. And went into the pool hall with him, and everyone there seemed to know him by a different name. People are like calling him Mr. Charles and things like that.
Sounds like a real pool shark.
Yeah.
Real hustler.
I like to think that Leon Redbone had a different persona for like every single place that he frequented. Like, to be a fly on the wall, just like watching him go about his normal day would have been amazing.
I think of him as a Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec.
You mean a Duke Silver?
Yeah, exactly.
People described him using the word impenetrable. They said you could never get a straight answer out of him. There were people that would try to dig into the the life story of Leon Redbone, and he was just quick with a one-liner or a joke or a deflection. You could just like never get him to talk about himself or his lived experiences in any way.
Yeah, which I'm sure the more people realize that, the more they tried too. So he was just having to keep this up.
Yeah. But that was what was interesting. He never once broke character. And I think that's part of the reason why no one actually treated it like an act, you know? There's definitely examples of other people that have done that. I mean, you know, like when Leon Redbone says that he's 127 years old, you're inclined to believe him in the same way that we can all agree that Sun Ra is really from outer space, you know?
Yeah, I was thinking of Sun Ra.
Like it comes to a point where it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's just the facts.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, like I said, his style remained unchanged. He talked about just not being a fan of the modern world that he was living in, not really caring about modern music or what the trend was. He just was fascinated with the time period that he was fascinated with and just embodied it. That's what he did. Very consistent in his own like strange way. The other thing I thought about too is you could argue that Leon Redbone is maybe the most successful outsider musician.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's very skilled as a musician, which typically outsider, they don't necessarily have to be bad, but the fact that he's so going against the rules, so to speak,
Yeah.
I think.
And it's an interesting approach too, because you think about eccentric musicians and outsiders and people that have these like strict ideas of how they want to present their music and everything. He was weirdly unafraid of doing things that people would consider a sellout. He was a regular on the Johnny Carson show, as well as other late night programs. There's a clip you can find of him on the Alf talk show, if anybody remembers that was somehow a thing at one point. Yeah, he did some high profile commercials. I mean, if you were at the right age seeing these in the 80s, it was probably a lot of people's first interactions with Leon Redbone, seeing him on Bud Light commercial doing his original song "This Bud's for You," that became a song that was like covered by other artists and used as like the Budweiser theme song for a long time. He did a version of "Getting to Know You" for a series of Chevrolet ads that was really iconic for the brand at one point. There's a famous dog food commercial where there was like an animated dog in a rocking chair singing a song as Leon Redbone.
Yeah, and he did the Mr. Belvedere theme.
Yeah, he did a few different theme songs. The Mr. Belvedere theme, the theme to the Harry and the Hendersons TV show that came out after the movie. I believe that one was called "Your Feet's Too Big."
Wow. This is factual. We're not.
No,
no more jokes.
Show's a real thing.
He was in a few select movies. Most notably, he was Leon the Snowman in Elf, as we've talked about, and we watched
not
that.
Alf, but Elf.
Elf, yes,
With Will Ferrell.
the Will Ferrell joint,
and Zooey Deschanel.
Mm-hmm. And he is the one singing the duet with Zooey Deschanel during the credits, and he voices Leon the Snowman. And the design of Leon the Snowman is based on Leon Redbone, obviously. So when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's what Leon Redbone was actually like. He also had a bit part in the 1987 film Candy Mountain.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because he's not actually a good actor. He's supposed to be playing this kind of like creepy, terrifying, like small town deputy who you're supposed to be like, oh, he's a wild card. He could do anything. He's evil. But he just can't help but still play it in a very charming way. he's like singing old timey songs in the corner, and he's got that deep voice. And you're just like, oh, Leon Redbone, you can do whatever you want to me. I don't even care anymore.
There are a surprising number of cult musicians in the cast of that film, like David Johansen, Joe Strummer, Arto Lindsay. It's like a Jim Jarmusch film almost.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The actor who plays his dad, that plays the sheriff in that role, is also the guy who plays the creepy snow shoveling neighbor on Home Alone.
You mean the magical old man?
Yeah. They sing a duet together, and the other guy's like doing like wolf howling noises over top of Leon playing these songs. It's great. You can find the 9-minute clip of Leon's role for that online if anybody is interested. Well, on that, let's go ahead and listen to another song. What do you guys think about that?
Sounds good to me.
What do you got?
Let's check out Lazy Bones. One of my favorites off this album.
Hoagie Carmichael and lyrics by Johnny Mercer, who we talked about on our Henry Mancini episode because he was the lyricist on Moon River. And I'm sure many other things.
Just a few.
Hoagie Carmichael, unlike Leon Redbone, good actor.
Lazy bone, sleeping in the sun. How'd you expect to get your day's work done? You never get your day's work done. Lying in the noonday sun. Lazy bone, sleeping in the shade. How you gonna get your cornmeal made? You'll never get your cornmeal made. Lying in the noonday shade. When the taters need spreading, I bet you keep praying the bugs fall off the vine. And when you go fishing, I bet you keep wishing the fish don't grab at your line. Lazy bone, loafing through the day. How'd you expect to make a dime that way? You'll never make a dime that way. Never have what I say.
I like the minimalism of these songs with just the guitar and the voice, and then, you know, you had some horns kicking in there and that harmonica. Is that him on the harmonica as well?
I believe that is Leon on the harmonica based on the credits on the album. Like, there's no one else listed on it.
Yeah, he's the guitar, harmonica, and whistling, and obviously the singing.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw how many players are on this record because I barely noticed all the various instrumentation coming in and out of the mix throughout.
Yeah, it gives me this feel like he might be sitting on a porch in a rocking chair with a tall glass of iced tea next to him, just
Whiskey.
perhaps whiskey,
Maybe a little bit of both.
a little mix, but yeah, it just feels relaxed.
And it feels effortless and like maybe even a little lazy. It feels like he has been playing these songs for 100 years. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's not trying to play it perfectly. He doesn't care if it's sloppy. You know, he would change the chords and the arrangements of these things often without telling any of the musicians he was playing with.
Yeah, that I'm sure he was like many outsider musicians, probably not always easy to perform with.
And yet you don't really hear a lot of people saying any bad things about him. Even if he was difficult to work with in that way, sometimes everyone just had the utmost respect and seemed to really love him despite his strangeness.
Yeah, and I don't believe that you had planned on going into the players on this record, but it is interesting to see that Don McLean, American Pie, Don McLean is on banjo on this record. And of course, our boy Ralph McDonald is back on castanets.
And that just adds to the mystery of this guy coming out of nowhere, like we talked about. Suddenly there's just a guy with a cartoon frog in his album, and he's got some major players backing him up, and yet he's barely using them. It's very minimal accompaniment on here. I think so. We have Bob Dylan to thank for this, as we said. You know, there's the Mariposa Folk Festival, and then shortly after that, Bob Dylan had a feature in Rolling Stone where he was just talking about how Leon Redbone was like his guy right now, and just everyone was like, "Who is this musician who's never recorded an album?" And he just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, getting Bob Dylan in your corner,
yeah,
is the way to go.
Yeah, and then I would imagine that a certain John Hammond was probably the main reason why he actually got signed, because John was a big fan of Leon and was, you know, Bob's manager at the time, and that was kind of his thing, is making people famous.
Yeah, as we've established on several episodes in the past, pretty recently we talked about him on Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, amazing career.
Yeah,
I wish you could write a whole book of Leon Redbone jokes and witticisms. And any kind of live footage you can find, or some of his talk show appearances, he's just so engaging and hilarious. And that continued throughout his whole life. There's a short, 15-minute long documentary about him on YouTube with some of his final performances of his whole life on there. And he's making lighthearted jokes about his failing health on stage, talking about I'm not in very good shape anymore. The doctor wants me to take a pill 3 times a day, and I refused
Yeah.
because that's impossible.
Yeah.
He would, introduce a song by saying things like, "This song's over 100 years old, so you all have had plenty of time to learn the lyrics. Let's go."
Yeah, this is a sing-along.
Yeah.
What is that called? Please don't talk about me after I'm gone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're sorry that we are, Leon.
Apologies.
We're honoring your anonymity.
Mhm.
If you didn't want us to talk about you, you would have been less interesting in life.
Even his obituary notice that was posted on his website is very goofy and just like perfectly in line with his style of humor. I have to imagine he wrote that in preparation, and like the last line of it is something like, "To all my beloved fans, please settle down." Just like, just a true character committed to the role to the very end.
Very Kaufman-esque.
Exactly.
Well, to not talk about him as are his wishes, is there anyone else we could talk about? Some similar artists? This seems like a kind of an impossible ask.
In a way, yeah. And there's artists that have mined the same area of music that we could talk about, but to me, I think one of the essence is just people who have fully embodied a character like this. We mentioned Sun Ra, and another one that he gets compared to that musically is not quite the same fit, but Dr. John was another guy who was performing as himself and then had this idea to create this character and then so fully embodied it that he just is Dr. John, and did it in a way that was authentic enough that no one ever questioned it. It works.
I never have.
Yeah, exactly. Stylistically, I think one of the best comparisons is Tiny Tim, who was equally obsessed with this time period and doing his own highly unique versions of these old songs.
Yeah.
And they're both outsider musicians, both complete oddballs, just, the opposite ends of the oddball spectrum, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. We previously talked about Tiny Tim, and I'd say a lot of his fallacy was very much on the surface, whereas I don't think you get that with Leon Redbone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a lot of his faults, I should say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully Leon Redbone was a good guy. It seems like it. And, I didn't hear any really dirty details coming out about him, but at the same time, very few people knew him intimately. So who knows? Well, we're just going to say that he was a complete saint. That's canon for now until it can be proved otherwise.
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of things to listen to, you could just listen to the people he was influenced by, the people he was covering. Listen to Hoagie Carmichael,
Definitely.
Fats Waller, Jimmy Rogers, those guys.
Yeah, and all those guys have compilations and anthologies that some record stores will probably pay you to take off of their hands.
I think they just keep releasing all of Fats Waller's music together.
Yeah.
Every couple of years, so shouldn't be
Exactly.
too hard to get your whole hands on.
Excellent.
Well, Sean, you mentioned earlier about the fact that Leon Redbone was mistaken or thought to be other artists, like people thought he was Frank Zappa in disguise. But I think when I first became aware of him when working in a record store, I also frequently mixed him up with someone else with a very similar sounding name, and that would be Leon Russell.
Exactly. We should mention that this is part of our highly unofficial battle of the Leons. We have one final episode of this season coming up where we'll be talking about Leon Russell next week, and then everyone can decide who is the superior Leon. I hope I have presented a good case for Leon Redbone being the better of the two, even though it's an inherently ridiculous comparison.
Other than that they are Leons close to each other in the R section at the record store.
Yeah, and one thing I saw too is that Leon Redbone is infamously one of the most misfiled artists. You will most commonly see him in the rock and pop section just because people don't know any better, and it's just he was popular, so we'll put him here. He's on a major label. And yet rock and roll was one of the only genres that he never performed and never listened to. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, well, we're hoping to at least right that wrong.
Mhm.
Record store clerks put him in
Folk.
Jazz.
Where do you put him? Jazz, folk,
Just put him in the back of the Hoagie Carmichael section.
other.
I thought you were going to try to amend the fact that he never listened to rock. I was like, you're going to dig him up and just blast some stuff at him?
Yeah, he did obviously listen to new metal, but he skipped all of the rock and roll that came before.
No context for it.
Well, this has been a lot of fun talking about Leon here on I'd Buy That for $1. What were we going to leave on?
No, Leon.
He shall be Leon.
Leave
I'm
on.
not talking about the band. What are you
Yeah, leave on.
We're gonna leave on Jeremy Ruggles' number one with a bullet favorite song off this
God.
album, Polly Wally Doodle.
I got a couple things to say about Polly Wally Doodle before we go.
Yeah.
Famously covered song by Burl Ives, who was the snowman in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer,
Ooh,
which
Snowman
Leon the
Gang.
Snowman, based on, also covered by Alvin the Chipmunks and the VeggieTales. We can go out on that.
Wow.
Good company.
Yeah, I feel like there might have been a reference to this song on The Simpsons too. So, all
Would not be
things to.
surprised. I think I heard it on Barney when I was a child. Real nostalgic for me.
I got to mention this real quick too. Leon Redbone was for the kids. There's multiple clips of him performing on Sesame Street and Between the Lions. He wrote some original educational material for the kids. That's great. Just what
Yeah,
a charmer.
I was reading he was like a regular on Between the Lines. It was a little after my time, so I never saw that show. But
Yeah. So I mean, there's multiple generations over the years that had different first Leon Redbone experiences. I love that.
And he did write originals.
Mm-hmm.
Just those educational songs.
Yeah, either originals for Bud Light or Sesame Street.
Yeah.
like some kids grew up watching Between the Lions with Leon Redbone. Other kids had Yo Gabba Gabba and Biz Marquee.
Yeah.
If only we could have brought the two together.
Biz Marquee really was the next Leon Redbone in a lot of ways.
Passing of the torch.
Yeah,
Both outsider artists. It works.
exactly.
Perfect note to end on. So, thank you so much for listening to I'd Buy That for $1. We will see you next week, listeners, for the final episode of season 4. We're going to do our follow-up Leon episode with Leon Russell, and we will, of course, do a wrap-up. This is the final album that we're talking about is next week, Leon Russell, and then we will do a wrap-up episode to close out the season. So we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to I'd Buy That for $1. My name is Peter Cook.
I'm co-host Jeremy, and I just want to thank Wes for coming on.
Yeah, it's actually the first time I met Jeremy in person.
Aw.
I am Sean Hartman. I'd like to thank Jeremy for having us all in his house. This has been great.
Aw, I'm happy to host the Hartman family any old time.
And I'm Wes, and I'm just glad that you guys keep having me on.
Good to have you back, Wes.
Yeah, it's nice to talk records with people.
Well, I went down south for to see my gal, Polly Walla Doodle all day. She got curly eyes and laughing hair, Polly Walla Doodle all day. Fare thee well, fare thee well, fare thee well, my fairy face. I'm going to Louisiana for to see my Susiana, Polly Walla Doodle all day. There's a grasshopper sitting on a railroad track, Polly Walla Doodle all day, picking his teeth with a carpet tack, Polly Walla Doodle all day. Fare thee well, fare thee well, fare thee well, my fairy babe. Gonna Louisiana for to see my Susiana, Polly Walla Doodle all day.